You know, not extending the Bush tax cuts can essentially be considered a tax increase by the Obama administration, and they're talking about all sorts of different ideas. The main one from the Obama administration is just extending the tax cuts for the middle class, but not for the so-called wealthy. And as we've talked to some experts out there, about 40% of small businesses are found in that wealthy category. Not wealthy really by most people's standards out there. Bill Beach is with the Heritage Foundation, and we thought we'd invite him on to talk about this. Bill, how are you?
I'm fine, Mr. Valentine. How are you doing?
Just wonderful. Call me Phil, please.
All right, Phil.
And so this is essentially going to be a tax increase if these things expire.
Well, it is on the people who will be paying the higher taxes, and the point of our paper, which we published on Monday, is that even though the people at the $200,000 if you're single, $250,000 if you're married and above level, are going to see their taxes go up, people at all levels of income will see less economic opportunity, fewer jobs, and slower wage growth. So the point is, a tax increase for gain among the 3 or 4% of the population is felt by the other 95% as real economic pain.
Right. As I've always said, when you soak the rich, everybody gets wet. And that's essentially what's going to happen, right?
In this case, we actually have the numbers to illustrate that from a model of the economy that's even used by the White House itself. So I'm kind of eager to send my note up to President Obama and say, well, you've got this same model. Why don't you run this through your model and see what your plan does for the American economy? Well,
but they're already, if you look at this basically as far as philosophy is concerned, they're already having to concede that the Bush tax cuts were not tax cuts for the rich, because now they're talking about extending the Bush tax cuts for the middle class. So apparently they were wrong before, and they're also having to concede that if you let people keep more of their money, that it'll help the economy. They just don't want the rich to keep more of their money.
Well, that's apparently it. I mean, this is one of the worst thought-through tax proposals I've seen in a long time. I think most of your listeners, most Americans know that since the Bush-era tax relief was put in place in 2001 and 2003, the percentage of total taxes paid by the upper 2% of the population has actually increased so significantly, and that's because everybody's gotten more prosperous. Even though we've gone through a terrible recession, and that top part has hurt just like everybody else. It is, if you look at it today as compared to back in 2000, we are a wealthier country. So this tax relief actually helped boost economic activity across that entire period, the recession notwithstanding. And now what we're looking at is having a tax increase during a period of economic weakness, which will be felt by the hundreds of thousands of people who won't have jobs. Our estimate is that in 2016, which is sort of in the middle of the 10-year period that we're forecasting for, that there will be about 876,000 fewer jobs that year. So if you're unemployed now, it's going to be kind of a dismal prospect over the next 10 years.
So it doesn't, I mean, to me, they're playing politics with this, but we shouldn't be playing politics. This is an economic certainty that if you raise taxes on folks, especially at a time like this, that it's going to damage the economy even further. So philosophically, Bill, they have to have come to that conclusion that they understand this. They understand. Essentially, what they're saying now is they understand that Reaganomics works. They're not going to say that. They're not going to even hint at that. But if they're talking about extending tax cuts for the middle class, then apparently they acknowledge that it's going to be beneficial to the economy.
Well, yes, I mean, that's a very good point that you raise. There are just millions and millions of people that will not see their tax rates go up if these Bush-era tax policies is extended, and so yes, they're basically saying that was a pretty good move to make, and we got to make sure that everybody keeps those tax rates where it's at. If it was a good move to make for labor income, where you find a lot of people working at the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, primarily what they make is from their own labor, it's got to be a good idea for capital income too. And capital, drives this economy. You invest more in a plant, a small business opens up a new firm, you buy a new piece of machinery, and everybody's working is more productive. Your scale of operations has expanded, and the economy expands. And that's because of capital. If you tax capital higher, which you're going to be doing under the Obama tax plan, with the dividend increase and the increase in the cap gains tax, then there will be less capital, and that's what really slows the economy in our simulation of his of his proposal.
And what's the capital gains tax going to go up to?
It goes from 15 to 20%. The dividend tax goes from 15 to as high as 39.6%, which affects, of course, the willingness of companies, to corporations in this case, to pay out dividends, and the amount that stockholders get in dividend income. That really affects the 18 million seniors, retirees who have dividend income in their tax returns. They'll be seeing higher taxes. So I'm sure President Obama didn't think about that of increasing taxes on seniors, but that's part of the reality. And it increases overall the cost of capital in the economy, which has this deleterious effect on economic activity. I mean, we're looking at almost $1.1 trillion less economic growth across this 10-year period. And man, that really hits families hard who are looking for a higher wage, looking for higher income to make up for everything they lost during the recession.
Well, what we should also be doing is eliminating the corporate tax. I mean, you have a corporate tax that's just passed along to the consumer. They understand this, Bill. When they were screaming about the higher gas prices, I heard a lot of people on the left saying, well, you know, these gas prices hurt the poor the worst because these companies are just going to pass that cost along to the consumer. And I'm going, well, why don't you feel the same way about taxes?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, in the work we've done, Mr. Phil, on tax changes that could be made, it really boosts the economy. The one thing that matters a lot is that corporate tax rate. You know, we've got the highest corporate tax rate in the world at 35% of taxable income. If you were to reduce it to the world average of roughly 25%, you would be looking at hundreds of thousands of additional jobs in the United States, and some corporations who would decide to stay here as opposed to going over to a lower cost state.
Yeah, and imagine if we got rid of it altogether.
Fabulous.
Wow, I know it. I mean, we would see the economy boom, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. You know, you made a wonderful point in your introduction about the millions and millions of businesses that are in the 1040. A lot of people don't know that the Subchapter S, LLCs, proprietorship, these are companies that actually file their taxes through the personal income tax form that you and I use to file our taxes. There are, in my database, there are about 27 million of these businesses, and we've estimated that their average increase in taxes will be $3,570. That is a fairly substantial average tax increase on small and medium-sized businesses, and so that will have an effect on the willingness of those businesses to expand their operations.
Now, I know you guys, you write policy papers, white papers, and you observe all of this, but what's your best guess out there, Bill, as far as what's going to shake out from all of this? Are we going to get an extension of all the Bush tax cuts? Because I know we got 31 Democrats who have said, look, we got to have tax cut extension or the Bush tax cut extension for everybody out there, and Obama wants it just for the middle class. Who do you think is going to win out?
Well, the closer and closer we come to the date when both the House and Senate want to go back and campaign for re-election, the safer the pocketbooks of everybody is going to be. They will come back. The Congress will reconvene after the election in a lame duck session. I just don't think that in a lame duck session they're going to do anything dramatic on taxes. They're going to have to do one thing, though, and that is to extend at least for 1 year the Bush-era tax relief, because on January 1st, 2011, all the taxes go up if they don't do anything. So my best guess is we're out of the woods if we can see our way through for the next, to say, 10 legislative days. We're out of the woods on a tax increase this year.
Well, let me ask you this final question, though. I mean, if we say they go up on January 1st, if they don't do anything, that's for the next tax year. So really, theoretically, if the Republicans came in, they could retroactively, say in March or April, they could say, "Hey, we're gonna extend these tax cuts," and then when you file for the next year, then they'll be there, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There is something if the Republicans have both chambers and if President Obama will sign the legislation, then we could in fact have a reversal of an automatic tax increase sometime in 2011. My guess is that what the politics of this is they'll want to make this at least a 1-year extension. Of course, that moves the debate into 2012, which is a presidential year,
Right.
so they may actually go for a 2-year extension of the tax.
Right. Try to put it past that election.
Absolutely.
Well, you can get more information at heritage.org. Always a pleasure to talk with Bill Beach and anybody from the Heritage Foundation. They do fantastic work up there in Washington, D.C. Bill, appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you very much.
We'll be back in a moment. 1-800-618-PHIL. Stay with us.